All right, good morning. Glad to have everyone with us. Just want to welcome you to Paintsville High School. We're in their art room. We appreciate Mrs. Coleman for allowing us to come into our art classroom. We will have students coming in at about 10 o'clock, so just keep your attention focused on Mr. Epling. What I would like to say is we have distributed the pencils, erasers, colored pencils, and paper. If you have not received enough paper, now, as far as the pencils and the colored pencils and whatever, those were starters. But paper, we will try to secure more paper if you need it, but you need to let me know, and let me know by emailing me. I put my email address over in the messaging. Email me and let me know how many additional sheets you need, and then we will try to accommodate from there. Remember, take notes during this session so you can remember later what it was that you talked about. Also, all of these videos are on the holler.org under the virtual art gallery holler. If you have not registered there, we'd like for you to do that. We still don't have the conversations going on the holler like we would like to have, so we encourage students to get on the holler. That's why it was designed and created, is for students to have the opportunity to talk to each other. So if you haven't already, we would like for you to register on the holler.org. All right, I don't want to take up any more of your time. We're ready for Mr. Epling to begin.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody has had a great weekend and you're back in the classroom ready to start. So far, we've had a great response in terms of student shared work. The only change that I would ask is that students, instead of sending me messages on the holler with their artwork, or teachers sending me messages on the holler with their artwork, post it so that everyone can see it. I have been resharing what I've been receiving, and I appreciate you doing that. So I don't want to discourage you from sending it to me. If there's no other way to get it to me, if you just don't want to post it on the forum or on the documents tab, then by all means send it to me, because I will repost it. But if you could go ahead and just post that yourself, then that's wonderful. As Ms. Thompson told you, we are at Paintsville High School, and we do appreciate you letting us be here this morning. We will have students in here a little bit later. So we've got a little bit of a cartoon tiger I was working on. That is the mascot here at Paintsville High School. So we're going to flip the chart over here and actually going to start looking at week 7. Now, week 7 is words. Words it seems like what would be typically common sense in a way, adding words to your page. But with this project, it's going to be a little more specific. We're going to be looking at the different ways you can put words to your pages, the options that you have to do that by. We're also going to be talking today about examples on how that is used, looking at a couple of my own books that were published. Some of those I wrote and illustrated. Others I was just the illustrator for. We have examples of picture books, chapter books, graphic novels, and comic books today. So I'll be showing you those. So I hope that you are taking notes, because what might seem like a very common sense type of portion to our art gallery workshop, this is actually pretty detailed and can get pretty complex, but I don't want to complicate it. We're just going to go over the basics today. Like I've said, all through each one of these sessions, we're covering grades 3rd through 12th. So that's a broad range of content there to have to share with you in ways that each grade level is able to comprehend it and use it. So bear with me if it's a little too complex. Teachers do an amazing job of taking all my ramblings and putting it into direct instruction, so I appreciate you doing that. But if there are some things we're covering today that seem a little too complex, just bear with me and we'll get through it together, okay? I do want to mention again what an opportunity this is. What we have here is a opportunity for students to create and share their work in a way that really showcases their talent. And it showcases the talent throughout the KVEC region. The opportunities from this program could mean published works. I do want to share with you, I promised last week I would bring it in. I'll talk more about this later on as we go, but this is Ted Hudson's book, Noah's Ark. Ted Hudson's a junior in Breathitt County. Now, Ted worked on this book himself, and he did the illustrations himself. When I visited the school, he had everything completed, and he was wanting to see, try to get it published. And along with the KVEC, the support from KVEC and the support from his school district, and especially from his teacher, Donna Combs, who really put it all together, this book was published. And Ted has his own website. I encourage teachers to open up this website and show students. It's tedhudson.net. So it's real easy. Just type in his name, .net, and pull up his website and see what Ted has done. Now, the website was created by his school's computer class. This is a sort of a method that I want to reproduce in as many schools as possible, and especially in high schools. So we have computer classes that are wanting to learn how to build websites, and if we have students who have books that can go on to be published, even by regional printers or publishers, then what we have is an opportunity then for those students to start generating not only an income from their work, but to be recognized for their work, and who knows where that might lead. So we're going to talk more about Ted's work in a little bit. So this week is Word, week 7, adding words to your page. And before we get started here, I want to caution you that there are a few options that we're going to be talking about, okay? And basically, they're summed up into 2 major categories. When you're adding words to your page, your options is to use a computer software to do that. We'll talk how that works. And your other option is to hand letter. Now, if you're doing a comic or a graphic novel, your options are pretty limited because you're going to have a ton more words than a picture book or even a chapter book. So each page and each panel there is text that moves the story along, from the introduction, establishing the setting, introduction of the characters, building of the conflict, and introduction of the antagonist, all the way to the conclusion. Okay? So for comics and graphic novels, I do suggest hand lettering your words. We'll talk about how to do that neatly in a little bit. I even have a couple tools to share with you that will help you, and so we'll go over that, okay? So what I have here is an example from a story that I'm actually working on right now. It's called Dance of the Fireflies by Mary Powell Wagner. Now, I've changed the text a little bit, but just to show you. Now, if you look here on the page, what I've done is I have I've printed text off the copier, okay? That's one sentence from the book. And I have pasted it onto my page. Now, this is my example page. Your page, of course, would be an individual piece of paper. But for the purpose of our session today, you're going to have to pretend with me again that this is a page here, individual page to a book. What you should have done already before adding this text in is pencil your page in. So I have done that, but in order for you to see it, I'll draw it out a little bit and put some detail so you can see what's going on here. Now, while I'm drawing this out for you so you can see a little bit more of the detail, this is, of course, is an example from a picture book. I want you to pay attention to where I place the text. It's in that location for a very specific reason. This is the very first page of the book. So when the reader opens up the story, they're going to see this page first, and this is the first text that they'll be reading. Okay, right here. The location is in the top left corner of the book. Sometimes whenever I've worked on layouts for different authors, especially if they have more words than a typical picture book normally has, a good example that's Owen Al's Wise Words. For this, the authors, who are Melinda and Julia Richardson, they had more text than what a typical picture book has. But each page is a full colored illustration. And if you notice here on this page, up here on the top, starting out, is the first text of Owen Al's Wise Words. Now, if you were reading this story on a piece of paper, if I printed it off the copier and I handed it to you, you would not see a break in these sentences to these sentences here. This is all one paragraph in the story. But for the purpose of the book, in order to not block the artwork and to make it a little more pleasing to the reader, the text is broken up in a way that the story flows along with the illustrations. Now notice this. The first text of the book is placed in the top left-hand corner. Immediately the eye is drawn to read the next part of the text. But in order to do that, the eyes have to pass through the owl. This is what makes book illustrators' job so difficult sometimes, is to think about all these different elements. It's not just drawing pictures and then putting those into a book. You have to think about text placement. Hopefully you've done that. I've mentioned it in the tutorials all along. I've mentioned it since week 5 really, to think about your text. In the storyboard construction of your project, this is a major part of creating a blueprint for your finished work. So for that reason, we added the text here in the top left corner for our firefly story. Now the text reads as this: Fred the firefly just seems less bright. Okay? Now, in order to flow the story, you would have to imagine what the next page will look like, and we'll go to it in a second. But the text is here, the artwork is here. Okay, you notice that the text is not blocking out any important artwork. It's off to itself. So when I color this, okay, I'm going to have this huge space up here that seems empty at first. But when you add text later, that's your area to place it in, okay? All right. I post a link to the WIN website, the WIN Readiness, for the career readiness for students on the Holler. I hope some of you have accessed that. I also had some teachers to post some additional resources, and I appreciate that very much for those interested in careers in the arts. I just finished a visit to Powell County schools. I spent 2 days down there. And one thing we talked about with the students was that the careers in art are vast. You do not have to work for Disney, Marvel, or DC, or Pixar to have a career working in the arts. There's things all the way from architecture to graphic design. There's art directors for almost any given major company or business in a certain location. Now, as we get further, I'm from Eastern Kentucky, as far east as you could go in the state. There's not a ton of art directors at all the various locations in my hometown. But I do work for tourism. I've worked for state tourism and local tourism. There's ways to make careers in art work. But one of the most, if you're interested in this, the most important thing you could do right now is take advantage of opportunities like this. This is how you could start building a portfolio, having a lot of diverse types of artwork for your portfolio, and working towards the end goal of accumulating as much of your work as possible. Okay? All right, back to this week's session for a second. I get on these tangents. You know how I am by now, hopefully. Okay. So the placement of the text is in the top left-hand corner. The artwork flows down to the right. There's purpose in that, because on the next page what we have, now remember, Fred the firefly just seems less bright. Here's the next page. It's very noticeable late at night. Okay, that's our text. Now notice where the text is on the second page of our book. It's down in the bottom right-hand corner. Now this is just a example of where we place the text in the top left-hand corner of the first page, and now the second page. The text goes from the top left to the bottom right. These pages would be side by side. So the first page would be right here, okay, on this side, and then we go into the second page. Now, what happens is, similar to what I explained to you with Owen Owl, where we had the text move down the page and cross over the owl's face. This is the same approach, but using 2 pages. Okay, so the reader goes from the text on the first page in the top left-hand corner, and instead of going to the bottom right-hand corner of the first page, their eyes have to move from the top left-hand corner to the bottom right-hand corner of the second page. Okay? That makes sure that the reader is going to take in all of the artwork. Now, what's going on in this page in terms of artwork? I've drawn all the blades of grass, and these would be silhouetted or darkened in once coloring happened, but I've drawn all these blades of grass to move inward towards the center of the page. Okay? Now, why not just place the text in the center of the page? Because the artwork seems to be moving in this direction. Your eyes are drawn towards the center of the page. Why not just put the text in the middle of the page then? Well, when you're illustrating a picture book, chapter book, or whatever theme you've chosen, and this is what makes sequential art so interesting when you're using it to tell a story, is that the artwork is equally important in telling the story as the words. Okay? So we would have fireflies, lit up all around the night sky. So behind the blades of grass would be the night sky. The blades of grass would be all going in towards the center. Okay? And how we've placed the text in the top left corner of the first page and the bottom right corner of the second page enables the reader to look across what we call the picture plane all the way down into this bottom corner of the following page. And they're looking and taking in all of this artwork. The artwork is just as important as the text in the story. Think of it like a soundtrack to a movie. If you've ever watched a happy movie or a scary movie, there is very deliberate choices being made as to what you're hearing in between words. For scary movies, think of the movie Jaws, the giant shark. Some of you may be too young to even know what I'm talking about, but there's a giant shark. He's swimming through the water. You have a little boat in the middle of this vast ocean. It's a small vessel. There's a few men on it. They see the fin pop above the water, and then there's just theme music. It goes something like dun-dun, dun-dun. So it builds up suspense, right? Your artwork is complementary to your words. It's your soundtrack almost, in a way. Okay? So that's the reason why I didn't place the text dead center of this page. Now the text is very important. When you try to tell a story just using pictures alone, it can be challenging. Okay. I want you to remember that the example that I'm using here is all being based on printing out your words and putting them onto your page. Okay. In a minute, we're going to be talking about hand lettering your text. That's the same principle in terms of where you place it, but your method of doing adding that text is a little different. Okay. So then we go on to the third page, and here we have the fireflies all in the center, and the text for this page is placed again in the top left corner. Okay, and the text reads, "The others seem to glow with ease." That's the text. So we're talking about the other fireflies now. Okay, Fred is no longer in the picture. So when I would color this page, I would obviously make all of these fireflies a lot brighter than Ted's, because the first page of the story tells us that Ted has a problem with the glow from his light. Okay, it's not too bright. So, and we have leaves and things all around here too, but we'll just leave it here for a minute. All right, so we're moving the story along. Again, we have the text in the top left-hand corner, and now we're going to be moving into the fourth page, which again returns to the fireflies, and the text here is, "They light up the leaves of the tallest trees." Okay, so we may have one firefly in the center of this page here, and this firefly will be very bright. The text is telling us that, Ted obviously has a problem, and the other fireflies are not experiencing the same problem Ted has. And we would draw the leaves around, supporting the main focus of the page, which is this firefly that is very bright. And you use your text to guide your illustrations. Now, this is something that should have been completed and worked out and thought of during your storyboard phase. But my text for this page reads as, "They light up the leaves of the tallest trees." So I very deliberately placed this firefly amongst a lot of leaves, right? So when I added color to this, what I would do, I would make the center portion of the page very bright. Okay, the leaves lit up by this firefly's light. Your text guides your story. But like I said, the illustrations are just as important as your text. And at the bottom, we could see the flow between the third and fourth pages, the text on those pages. And right here at the bottom, we can look at that. So what I've done is I've moved the text from this corner over to this corner for the third and fourth page. So again, the viewer's eyes are going across the picture plane. They're taking in the story through the text, but then they're also taking time in to see what's happening with the artwork. Okay? It's real important when you structured your storyboard. I talked about placement of text. Think about how to use the placement of text in interesting ways. Last week we even looked at your choice of font. Now, what font is, for those who don't know, when you're typing on a computer, you know how you could change the look of the words. You could select an option on the program, whatever type of word processing program you're using, and you can change the look of the words. So you may have a font that is very big and bold, like bubble letters, or you may have text that is more traditional, similar to like a typewriter or what you see normally found on your instruction flyers given to you in class. Okay, think about your choice of font, and if you need to, go back and review last week's session. We looked at a book called Sleep, Big Bear Sleep by Will Hillenbrand, and in that book we looked at the different ways he deliberately chose a unique looking font for what's happening on the page. Another example we used last week was Dinosaur versus the Potty by Bob Shea. Now, in that book, there's a ton of different text being used. Remember the page we looked at with the dinosaur and he was roaring? The text on the previous page were small letters, but the roar of the dinosaur was all capitalized with an exclamation point and in big, bold letters. So for a picture book, a chapter book, you could be thinking of all these different ways to incorporate choices with your words and the look of your words and the placement of your words. Okay? Now we're going to move on, and we're going to talk a little bit now about comics and graphic novels. Those of you working on a comic or a graphic novel, what you should have right now is you started working on your final penciled page. So you're taking your ruler, you're measuring out those boxes, you're using your storyboard to go by, you're taking your time. You've got these nice straight lines for your placement of your panels, and then you've also started to pencil in those boxes. So inside of each one of those boxes, you've started working on your final artwork that will be inked. The last step, or you may have started this already, but is lettering. Now, with comics, they have a device. See, back in the day before word processors and Photoshop and of all those sorts of things, comic artists had to letter by hand. So if you look at anything produced prior to the late 80s, early 90s, most of it's by hand. And there was a device that was created called the Ames Lettering Guide. And this is an Ames Lettering Guide right here. And this little device would help cartoonists, and I'll hold it up to a more of a darkened background so you can see it. It's clear, okay? That doesn't help much, does it? It's got a little spinning circle there in the middle, and you see those holes in there. And what those holes would do, basically they would guide the pencil line. So thank you so much. This is perfect. Okay. You can see it way better now. It came so that you would use this little circle here for your lettering. Now, this would not help you or assist you in actually lettering your comic, but what this would do, it enables you to make straight lines that have equal distance in between them, so that when you go to letter your comic, those lines separate your text so you have the same size text. Now, the goal was back in the day for a cartoonist to be able to produce the same letter over and over and over and over again, or the same look to a certain letter. And that's something that I want to kind of stress to you who are creating comics and graphic novels. And what I mean by that is this. When you go to letter your comic, you do not need an Ames Lettering Guide to do that by. You could use a ruler. Down here I have a thought balloon that I've drawn out for you to kind of use as an example here. Okay, so here's a thought balloon. And remember, in week, I think it was week 3, we talked about the various uses of these shapes and things to convey the story in comics. There's thought balloons, word balloons, there's narration boxes. Go back and review these sessions. But in pencil, not in pen, you would lay your ruler down and you would make these lines, okay? And you would separate them equal distance apart, okay? And it would look something like this when you're finished. Now those would be applied to your paper using pencil, not pen though, because you erase these when you're finished. Now comic artists challenge, and one of their challenges back in the day before word processors were to create letters that had uniformity. So if I made a letter A, a small case A, as many times as I use a small case A in my story, it's going to look the same every time you see it. Okay? So we're not going from this to something like, I don't know, like you could do this right here, or the tail on it's changed. It's uniform. It looks the same. And they had this challenge of when they used a word that had a letter that repeated itself, was to depict that letter the same way each time. So your first step then would be to make these lines to guide your sentences or your words, and then you apply the words to your thought balloons, narration boxes, or your speech balloons. Okay. So let's go up here now and zoom out a little bit, and we're going to take a look at one example panel from a comic or a graphic novel. Let's pretend that this box that I'm showing you, and the students are in here. Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Students have just arrived in the room. If you hear, they're coming in the background there. We're going to use this as an example panel from a comic here. So I've blown this up. This box is this small panel of your comic, okay? All right, so we'll put some artwork in here to kind of help you see what I'm doing. So we'll have 2 little simple cartoon characters here, and let's say they're talking to one another. I may not put full detail in for time reasons, but you can see what I'm trying to do with just the basic shapes here, okay? So we have 2 characters of our story, or what could possibly be 2 characters in our story, and you have one who is leaning down and he's telling the other something, okay? And you notice that we already have our speech balloon up here at the top. Okay, so there we have our characters. We have some sort of action going on with our artwork. And so in order for me to place words or text onto the page, you would hand letter like we talked about using your ruler. You would take your ruler, you would apply it to this. Now this is this panel of this page blown up, remember, okay? So you would apply your ruler down to the page, you would make your lines equal distance apart. And this is how cartoonists back in the day had to do every single piece that they produced. They used this Ames lettering guide a lot, and how this would work, since we're zoomed in, I'll show you this. They would lay the ruler down on the paper, they'd place the Ames lettering guide on top of the ruler, and all those individual holes would be where you placed your pencil, okay? And you stick your pencil in. Now if you use this top hole, then it explains to you to go 1 notch down, and if you continue that process, then you will make equal lines. So you start up here at the top, you put your pencil in, make a line, put it in the next hole, make a line, next hole, and so you never have to move down as you go. And if you twist this knob on this Ames lettering guide, it increases the space in between your lines, okay? So I wanted to explain a little bit how that worked. So be sure to take your time with this stuff. Use a ruler. It's going to be really difficult to use a word processor or like print out your story in Pages or in Microsoft Word. Cut those out and apply those. So I want to show you a example real fast. This is a graphic novel. This is Batman, Absolute Batman. This is Hush. I thought that this would be one of the better examples we have here. You can see here how the artist has used, like on this page for instance, on the left we see, or on the right, we have a full colored illustration or comic that has went to the edges of the page. That's an option. You don't have to place boxes or panels on every page. Now you notice over here on the left you have boxes. There's no thought balloons or word balloons. Those boxes are what I meant by narration boxes. So that basically the writer or author of this comic is telling the story. The artwork serves almost like a soundtrack to a film. It's just as equally as important as the text. And I'll try to find a page here with some. Here we go. Here's some word balloons. Okay. Notice down at the bottom for sound effects. We looked at this. I think it was in week 3. We talked about sound effects with comics. So research and look at your favorite comics and cartoons. See how that artist actually put together different symbols, shapes, and different fonts to show sound, movement, action in the comic. Okay. Now I brought another example here too. This is my book. This is a collection of a webcomic called Salt. It's from Matthew 5:13. If you're a young Christian, you know what I'm talking about. Basically what this is, it's a web comic that comes out every Sunday. So a new one went up yesterday. And inside of this, if you were to open this book up, you're going to see that there's panels. Okay. Now this is different. This is a comic strip. It's a collection of comic strips. So there's 63 comic strips in this book. And you can see how I've used the boxes for narration, the speech balloons, and that sort of thing. This also reminds me now to talk a little bit about your cover. Today when I go up to University of Pikeville, I'm going to be creating a tutorial on creating your cover for picture books, chapter books, and graphic novels and comic books. The cover is very important. We covered that a little bit in week 5. We talked about how important your cover is. So go back and review that if you need to, okay? All right. Now for chapter books, I used the same text that I used for the picture book example in the beginning of our session today, but the only difference is I've placed every single sentence on one page. Okay? So instead of breaking each one of these sentences down and applying a page individually for each sentence, I've placed all 4 sentences that were on each individual page of the picture book into one paragraph here for the chapter book. Now, I'm going to draw this out because I think this is important to show this. You have to think about artwork differently than you did before, because what is happening is we have all 4 sentences of the story happening on one page. Where before we were able to introduce our lightning bug Fred and show him in the first page not being able to glow very well, and then from there we were able to show the others glowing, and so on and so forth. With the chapter book, with one entire paragraph happening on one page, we have to think differently about our artwork, okay? So for this, where before we had Fred the Firefly just seems less bright, we had a page showing Fred the Firefly on the page looking all sad. Then we had, it's very noticeable late at night, we had the grass growing up into the center of the page and the text in the bottom right hand corner. The others seemed to glow with ease. That showed other fireflies in the picture glowing in comparison to Fred's dim light. They were very bright. And then they light up the leaves of the tallest trees. And in that page we had the leaves of the trees lit up and the firefly in the center. When you combine sentences for a chapter book and you have various artwork throughout the chapter book on pages, you have to think differently about how you're going to showcase everything happening in your text on one page instead of 4 individual pages. So for the purpose of this, I've drawn our little firefly on a leaf. He's looking sad. We have the other fireflies in the background that we could put in with color. They could be glowing. The leaves up here could be lit up more. So you're combining all of these words on one page. For a chapter book, if you've chosen a chapter book as your template, you could place the paragraph on the top or bottom or middle with the artwork on either end, almost like a book, like you have bookends. Okay, think of your artwork in terms of being used sparingly, but I want to see artwork though. I had a question come in on the holler.org about using pictures, photographs that you take as artwork for your book. I don't want to limit students. If you have an inspiration that you're thinking of for your finished product, and it involves collages or pictures, I don't want to say you can't do that. This is about art, though. It is about creating illustrations through some sort of artistic expression, some sort of medium. So I can't really limit, I don't think, students to not be able to use collages or pictures. But please keep in mind that the emphasis here and the goal is to have, created works using a medium that you draw. You're drawing out the illustration or the picture. But if you have chose to use a collage or picture, that's fine. I look forward to seeing how you do that, really. But we're gonna see. I'll show you Silverstein's book too. A lot of you know Shel Silverstein, A Light in the Attic. If you've chosen a book of poetry, it works similar to a chapter book, really, where you have the words appearing and then the artwork's going to be bookend around the words somehow. Okay, and go to your library, check out The Giving Tree, Light in the Attic. Look at Shel's work and see how he has approached this, and try to use a similar method for your book on poetry. Okay, so that's a great reference. All right, let's move on. And I think now we're going into what's going on next week. Thank you. Okay, let me show you a couple examples from my work. Like I promised, I shared with you Owen Al's Wise Words earlier. This book I illustrated. The placement of text is very important in this because they had large paragraphs. It's not a chapter book, but it's in between a chapter book and a picture book, really. And we'll look at a page real fast from that. Like you can see the first page of the book, one paragraph appearing on the bottom right-hand corner of the page, and then we referenced, I think, this page for our example. And remember how the illustrator or the graphic designer has chosen to place half the paragraph here, the other paragraph on the bottom left-hand corner of the page, causing the viewer to have to go here to read it, passing through the artwork. So the placement of text is very deliberate. Another example is Irby's Turn to Rake. This was my first book ever, published in 2012. This won a silver medal for Reader's Children's Book of the Year, 4th to 6th grade reading level. This is a combination between a picture book and a chapter book. So there's 15 chapters in this book, but there's only 2 pages per chapter. So we have little Irby here. He's a kind of a strange looking guy. And you notice how the artwork is above the text. Those of you like Tim Burton, Nightmare Before Christmas, Edward Scissorhands, you'd enjoy Irby's Turn to Rake. It's got a weird element to it, and I'm a little weird, so it helps. Yeah, the text is at the bottom in paragraph form. The text isn't broken up. It's not placed across the artwork. The artwork does not extend to the main edges of the page. It's centered in the middle. So that's one example for that. Another example from my work I have is called Bella's Story. It's this little tiny book. In this, it's all black and white drawings. This was created for the Mosby Foundation in conjunction with the Mosby Foundation. The Mosby Foundation helps pet owners that can't afford health care to provide for their animals. So here's the pages from that book I illustrated. You see the little dog here. It's sad. It's not eating. Here's another page from that. You notice that it's set up a lot similar to Irby, where the artwork's in the middle of the page. Now, this is technically a picture book, but if you were to add all these boxes on one page, it would turn into a comic book. They're done in black and white, and they're in panels. Okay. All right, and then we'll reference one more time Ted Hudson's Noah's Ark. He's a junior in Breathitt County High School. He's going to be doing a book signing at Joseph Beth Bookstore. His book's available online. I think he's sold near 200 copies in 2 weeks, so that's pretty good. Ted's he's really talented, but you know what? I've seen amazing talent from the KVEC region. From all the schools I visited, I've seen students work. There's no reason why we should not have published authors in every school in our KVEC region. No reason. My goal for this project, if you take your time, if you work hard and produce something that's worthwhile, and you know what, it'll show too. Your work will show that you've taken this seriously and produced something that you really care about. If you do that, I will go to the ends of the earth to try to get this book published in any way I can. You have my word on that. Ted already produced this artwork, and he had the story written before I visited the school for a week. But with my help, we were able to get the book published. So I want to, and you see here on the back, barcode and everything. Here's a picture of Ted in the middle. Ted, and I've got permission from the school to share this with you. and from his parents. Ted suffers from autism. This is Autism Awareness Month. He's an amazing young artist, and we have tons of amazing young artists in the Quebec region. I want to see this same example that Ted has shown us his capabilities here reproduced in every school in our Quebec region, okay? All right. I've drawn a tiger for you guys today. It's in a pencil version, but maybe we could, any questions we could take right now, and I'll turn it over to Mrs. Thompson again. Any questions coming up on the conversation board? The students want to say hello? You guys want to say hi?
Yeah.
Say hi from Batesville High School?
You kind of have to get inside the camera.
Yeah, you have to come right here and just say hi.
Come on, guys.
Say hello. You're talking to 18 counties, okay? 18 counties. So.
What up?
Hi. There we go. Great.
And this is their art teacher here,
Hello.
Mrs. Coleman. So we appreciate you letting us come to the
No problem.
baseball.
No problem. It was exciting.
I'm going to turn this over to Mrs. Thompson. Thank you. Look for the tutorial to accompany this video. Go to the holler, interact, share comments.
There you go. That's exactly what I want you to say. We want to make sure that everybody gets registered on the holler and that we continue this discussion there, talking with each other and letting each other know what you found through your research as far as word placement on the page like he just talked to us about, or different character drawings or whatever you research and find. Share it on the holler so that we all know what everybody knows. Additionally, when Mr. Ebeling talked to you about publishing a book, that's what we want to do. We want to help you students know that not only can you find your artistic talent, and not only can you learn to put words with your artwork, but you could use this as a means of income in the future if you so choose. And we're all about trying to help you to do that. But now we don't really have the names of all the students out there. We contact teachers and work through teachers. So unless you bring your work to our attention, we're not going to know what your work is. So you can either do that by contacting us by the holler on the virtual art gallery, or Epling Illustrations, or I left my email address on the message board there on the side, or the teachers can contact us, but you have to let us know what your good artwork is out there. I do realize that some of you have sent me individual emails to say that you haven't received your supplies yet. I will say this again, we gave them to the innovation coordinators and they were to get them out to you. But if you haven't received them, make sure you contact me and we will make an extra effort to get those materials and supplies to you. We may not have had enough paper that went out because we don't know how many pages you want in your book. So we just did a guesstimate and sent out some paper. But if you find that's not enough paper, let me know and I'll try to order additional paper. So if there are any questions, I think there is a question, and that would be for Mr. Epling to answer.
Okay, thank you. What is the name of the lettering tool? Okay, it's Ames Lettering Guide. If you want to zoom in on it, you can see this is the packaging for it. You don't have to have this tool to create your comics. Those of you who are creating comics on your own, this is a nice, and you want to hand letter, this is a nice tool to have.
Where would they be able to find that, Christopher, if they were going to purchase it?
Hobby Lobby and Pop will have it. So if you have any major art stores near your location, they have it. You can order it off Amazon. It's relatively cheap too. It's, you know, you can find it on Amazon for a couple of bucks. Ask your mom or dad, or to go on there and say, hey, can you kind of hook me up with $3 or $4? I need an Ames lettering guide. But this is really good for hand lettering. But a ruler will suffice for now. You don't really need one of those lettering guides. You just want to pay attention to the space between your lines. Try to keep each letter uniform too. Remember that, okay? Any more questions you have? And please go to the website, interact. Just like Mrs. Thompson was saying, we interact with your teachers, okay? So unless you, the student, becomes proactive and says, here, look what I'm creating, then we're not going to see anything until the finished product. If it's something really interesting and you want to share it, you want to get our attention ahead of time, share it on the holler.org. That way, whenever your book is ready, we can say, hey, that was that student from that Wood School with that amazing artwork. And it stands out. Be proactive. Take charge of your own opportunity here, okay? And use the tools and resources available to you. Don't wait on someone to come and say, hey, let's go, let's do this. Take charge of it, okay? That's my best advice from today.
Your best advice is always, and I want to say this in closing if we don't have any more questions, Christopher Epling always tells you that, stay focused, be proactive with your life, not just through this art and book writing, but in all aspects of your life, because one wrong decision with drugs or alcohol or whatever that direction, it could prevent you from publishing a book or doing your art or just living life to the fullest. So keep that in mind, as that's one of his signature quotes on these videos. Stay drug and substance abuse free. So if there are no further questions, this will be posted to theholler.org soon. We're getting a little faster with getting those on there, and Mr. Epling goes to the Holler every time we publish a session and has it put up there. So we appreciate him, we appreciate you, and we look forward to hearing from you. And remember, let us know if you've got something that you want to have published, because we're getting ready to have our Action Research Summit at the Expo Center tomorrow, and we will continue to have those in the spring and in the fall. And what I would like to do is have you students that have published books to have a booth there, so that you can showcase your work and showcase your talent. So let us know if you've got something that you think you may want to have published. And other than that, have a wonderful rest of the week, and we look forward to joining you. I think we have one more question. We're joining you next week from Sebastian Middle School. So Reggie, if you guys are on there with us, if you can hang on after the session concludes, so we can make sure that our connection with you is good and clear.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Dawson. We have one more question here. We have students that want to do the illustrated pages smaller than the 8 by 11 by 8 pages. Is there a suggestion? If you have students who want to produce smaller artwork, then I say go for it. We have the capability to bind different sizes. This is a perfect book binding machine, so it's using glue, not spirals or staples or something. Yeah, absolutely. If they want to produce artwork smaller than 11 by 8, we will accommodate that. Okay. And I want to also take a second to Mr. Bobby, you want to say hello real fast? Now, Mr. Bobby and Mr. Thompson went to school together, okay? And that is how he and I, well, we know each other in that way, and he goes to all the schools with me. And let me tell you something. You talk about someone who has an encouraging message. Bobby, he is an absolute inspiration to everybody that knows him. And Kelly and I thank God every day to have him as our friend. And you know what? I just want to acknowledge you there, buddy. So say hi. You want anything to say?
I want to say something, okay? When we were in high school, we had voices. We heard voices. But there's something different today. You have to remember, okay? We are listening, okay? So it's your responsibility to work as a team to reach out to us, okay? Theholler.org or by email. It doesn't matter. I had a student contact me yesterday, and we are talking about her storyline right now. I would say her name, but I won't. But feel free to contact one of us. We're here to help you now build a foundation, okay? So we have to work together to make it happen. Thank you.
Any better at all.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Good job, Bob.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. And I'll see you in the classroom.
All right, Paintsville kids, let's say bye.
Bye,
to them.
everybody. Let's say bye, everybody.
Bye, guys. Bill, make sure you stay on with me.